Have you ever wondered what F1 drivers do when nature calls at 200 miles an hour? Yeah, you heard it right. We're talking about the call of nature, the bathroom break, the when you gotta go, you've gotta go type of thing. Welcome to F1 Racing now. Please see that you can like, share and subscribe if you find this as entertaining as we did. Today, we're going to talk about a topic that's as amusing as it is intriguing. Do F1 drivers pee in their cars? Well, keep on watching to find out. So, how did we get here? Before we get to the big question, let's hit the rewind button and take a look at the history of F1 racing and bathroom breaks. F1 has a rich racing history, filled with thrilling victories, heartbreaking losses, and yes, some rather amusing bathroom breaks. Back in the day, drivers didn't have the luxury of high-tech suits or advanced hydration strategies. They had to rely on their grit and determination to get them through the race. And when nature called, they had to make a split-second decision to hold it in or, quite frankly, let it go. These stories from the past add a layer of humour and humanity to the high-octane world of F1 racing. So, here's the bladder-burning question that crossed the minds of F1 fans and the curious. Do these speedsters, these masters of the track, actually take a leak in their cars? I mean, imagine the scenario. You're in the middle of a Grand Prix, the adrenaline is pumping, the crowd is roaring, and then you gotta go. What do? Do you clench your teeth, tighten your grip on the wheel and try to hold it in? Or do you just let go, let it flow? Right there in the cockpit whilst you're zooming past at 200 miles an hour. It's a question that's as hilarious as it is bizarre. But hey, when you gotta go, right? And let's be honest, it's not like there's a pit stop for pit stops. So what's the real deal? Let's talk about the physical demands of F1 racing and how it affects the body, including the inevitable call of nature. Real talk for a second. F1 racing isn't just about the speed and skill. It's a physically demanding sport that pushes the human body to its limits. Yes, the drivers need to stay hydrated, especially during those long, grueling, hot races. However, all that hydration has to go somewhere. And with the G-force pressing down on them and the vibrations from the car shaking them up, holding it in isn't exactly a walk in the park. In fact, it's more like trying to hold a yoga pose in the middle of a rock concert. Not exactly the most comfortable situation. Now imagine doing that whilst you're strapped into a cockpit, hurtling down a racetrack at hundreds of miles per hour. Yeah, not fun. But here's the thing, these drivers, they're professionals. They are trained to handle all sorts of physical and mental stress. And yes, that includes the need to pee. But even for these seasoned pros, it's not always easy. The human body isn't designed to control the bladder when you're experiencing high G-forces and extreme vibrations. It's a challenge to say the least. And the question about hydration. These drivers, they sweat a lot. We're talking up to 3 litres per race. That's like sweating out a large bottle of soda. So they need to drink a lot of fluids before and during the race to stay hydrated. But all that fluid has to go somewhere. And sometimes that somewhere is the driver's suit. Yeah, that's right. So what happens when an F1 driver drinks up to 2 litres of water before a race and then finds himself strapped into the cockpit and feels the urge to go? It's the ultimate driver dilemma. To pee or not to pee? That is the question. On one hand, they could choose to hold it in. Sounds simple enough. But remember, we're talking about holding it in whilst driving an F1 car at blistering speeds, pulling multiple Gs on the corners, with the roar of engine in their ears and the vibration shaking them up. On the other hand, they could just let it go. Yeah, they could choose to do that. And some drivers, they do. Yep, right there in the car mid-race. It might sound gross, but when you're racing against the clock, every second counts, and a pit stop for a bathroom break, that's just not in the cards. So yes, some choose to hold it in, focusing on the race and ignoring the growing pressure. Others, well, they just let nature take its course. Now, let's talk about the gross bit. Let me tell you, it's not as easy as just deciding to let it flow. There's a lot to consider, like how will it feel? Will it be distracting? And what about the aftermath? Will it affect the electronics in the car? And let's not forget about the poor pit crew who have to deal with the, wet situation. So, before we talk about the aftermath, are you ready for some laughs? Let's share some funny and interesting stories from F1 drivers about this topic. First up, we have the legendary British driver David Coulthard. During the 1998 Belgian Grand Prix, Coulthard found himself needing to relieve himself. But with no pit stop in sight, he did what he had to do, and he peed in his seat. And here's the kicker. The pee ended up shorting out the car's electrical system, causing it to lose power. Talk about a shocking turn of events. And you might have heard the story about Mark Webber, the Australian driver known for his grit and determination. During the 2007 Monaco Grand Prix, Webber found himself needing to go. But rather than lose precious time with a pit stop, he decided to just, well, go. Right there, in the car, mid-race. And the best part, he ended up finishing the race in a respectable 7th place. Webber was always good in wet conditions. And who could forget the story of the French driver, Francois Sauveur? During the 1973 Dutch Grand Prix, Sauveur found himself in a rather wet situation. Unable to hold it in any longer, he decided to relieve himself in his suit. But rather than being embarrassed, Sauveur took it in his stride, even joking about it with his fellow drivers after the race. But it's not all fun and games. There's also the story of Nico Rosberg, who had to pee so badly during the 2014 Singapore Grand Prix that it became a distraction. He was squirming in his seat, unable to focus on the track. In the end, he had no choice but to pit and take a bathroom break. Needless to say, he didn't win that race. Now, all of these stories might sound unbelievable, but they're all a part of the wild world of F1 racing. Now, what happens after a driver decides to let it go? Well, it's not as messy as you might think. The suits are designed to absorb and evaporate sweat, and they do a pretty good job with other liquids too. But let's not sugarcoat it. We're talking about urine here. It's not exactly a pleasant situation, and of course, it can smell pretty badly. So, who's the unlucky person that has to deal with the, wet situation? Well, that's a job for the pit crew. And you thought changing tyres was tough. These unsung heroes of the F1 world have to deal with all sorts of unexpected situations. And yeah, that includes cleaning up after a driver's bathroom break. But still, it's not just about the cleanup. There's also the question of the car itself. You see, F1 cars are finely tuned machines, packed with high-tech electronics. And last time I checked, electronics and liquids don't mix well. So, if a driver does decide to pee in the car, it could potentially cause some serious problems. So, there you have it, the aftermath of an F1 driver's bathroom break. Yes, it's a bit gross, a bit hilarious, and a whole lot of awkward. But hey, that's just part of the job when you're an F1 driver. Well, that's it for today. The glamorous world of F1 has its own share of bathroom humour. Whether they choose to hold it in or let it go, one thing's for sure. These drivers are committed to the race, come hell or high water, or a full bladder. Have you got any thoughts on this particular topic? Drop us a comment below. And if you enjoyed this video, do remember to hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss out on our next videos. Thanks for watching this one in full and not stopping for a pee break yourself. Hats off to you. This has been F1 Racing Now, your inside track to all things F1. We'll see you in the next one.